Hey, welcome to the show. Mike Irwin, our senior analyst. Drew with you as well. Otis Kirk, our recruiting insider. Guys, let's recap SEC Media Days. The circus that is SEC Media Days. Arkansas's day was Wednesday. What'd you think, Mike? Obviously, you never know what kind of question may come for these guys, but in your past experiences, just seeing SEC Media Days.
You know, I think a lot of the media, they're looking for some splash quote, something really interesting or funny, the way they always followed Les Miles around, tried to get him to say something crazy at Media Days. The best thing to me was some of the stuff Chad Morris said. I'm sure a lot of people tuned it out, thought it was boring. I'll just kind of paraphrase here, but it was extremely important. He talked about not trying to develop a good team now, but how to develop a championship program and how you do that. And he said, at that point, when you get there, it's not coach-driven, it's player-driven. He went on to say a bunch of things, and when I heard that, I remembered the first time I heard that stuff. It was 35 years ago. I went into John McDonald's office after he'd won about 4 national championships. Nobody else on campus had won a national championship except Frank. And I said to John, how are you doing this? And what he told me was almost exactly what Chad Morris said the other day. It starts with your players. You're trying to create a program that's led by the players, not the coaches. Coaches can only do so much. They recruit, they run practice, but they're not out on the field. And players have to do that. It has to become your team. And then the whole comment he made about everything, every day, the every comments, he said it has to be every day you do this, every drill you do. You can't take any time off. John talked about that. So when he said all that stuff, I thought, he's got the right plan. Whether he can execute it or not, I don't know, but he's got the right plan.
I notice these guys are young. I mean, to Mike's point, 52 freshmen, you know, that's whether you're a true freshman, redshirt freshman, walk-on, then you got 28 sophomores.
Yeah, they're young, but, you know, that in this day and age in college football, I don't know that is necessarily a red flag as much as in the past, because a lot of schools are losing kids after 3 years to grad transfer to the NFL. You know, used to kids stayed no matter what because you couldn't leave early for the draft. So now a lot of schools are young. I don't know that you ever have a team. I know some of Frank's teams, like Mike was talking about, you know, really heavy with fifth-year seniors and stuff. I don't know if you'll ever see a lot of that again, Drew. I really don't in college football because of people leaving early for the draft, grad transfers and stuff. But you're young, but I think the biggest thing is going to be the buy-in. I look at that team this year, and what I'm looking at right now is what's going to be the buy-in. What's going to happen if they start 3-1 or 2-2? What's going to happen if they start 4-0? I think we know what's going to happen if they start 4-0. The fans are going to start buying in. The players will buy in at that point. But I just want to see. Yeah, a lot of people say, and I've heard Chad say something like this about, you don't really know what you've got till you face adversity. You know, I mean, that's when you get a true test of character, is when you face adversity. And so but that's one thing Arkansas has got to avoid early on is adversity. I'm just looking at the buy-in over there this year. I think the buy-in is good. I think most of the players, if not all of them, maybe probably all of them, but the ones that didn't buy in, I think they're gone. But I think the buy-in will be good. But that's what you've got to look for, because it's easy to say that, and you can believe that, but let's see what happens when they start playing. Is the buy-in there? I think it is, but till we see it, you can't say that for sure. You just can't say it for sure.
Point of reference, last year, week 2, meltdown at Colorado State. Everything went off the rails. Obviously, North Texas blew out Arkansas when Arkansas was at home. All right. The way that Arkansas is perceived right now as a program, obviously Razorbacks picked to finish last in the SEC West, Mike.
Yeah, the media days, that poll is usually wrong. I mean, they pick Alabama every year, and that's a no-brainer, and that part of it's right. But then when you go 2 through 7, it's wrong, and it's wrong on the east side. So I'm not too concerned about that. But come on, guys, they're not going to finish second or third or something like that. It's probably, the question is, are they going to finish 7th or 6th? If everything went right, maybe 5th. But, you know, you can't turn this thing around overnight. That's another thing Morris talked about. If you listen to what he said, he wasn't talking about, hey, man, we're going to compete for the SEC title. He didn't even talk about how many wins they would have. You just got to get yourself in a position where you're starting to be competitive, and that's what he said. This year we hope to start convincing our fans that we're making progress, and they didn't convince anybody last year.
I picked them 6th in the SEC West, but Otis, when you look at it, obviously week 2 is the barometer. You look at Ole Miss, going to Ole Miss, that's big.
Yeah, you've got early on. You go to Ole Miss and you go to Kentucky. I know you've got the A&M in between there and some non-conference games, but I think the key to this season is for where they finish. And I'm like Mike. I don't think they'll finish 7th, but there again, I'm not sitting there saying they're going to finish. To me, progress, everybody defines it a different way. I look at 6-6 this year. Go to a bowl game, any bowl game, doesn't matter which one. Go to a bowl game, be 6-6, be competitive in the games you lose. That's progress. That's big time progress, because if you look at, they were 2-10 last year. 2 years ago, they were 2 plays away from being 2-10. They finished 4-8, but they were 2 plays, a play against Coastal Carolina, the field goal against Ole Miss, from losing those games. So I think 6-6 would be huge progress, and I look at this situation right now, just saying I don't think Arkansas will finish last, but 5th to 6th would be progress, big time progress.
All right, we're going to get to the defense in one of our reports later, but let's go to the offensive line in particular. And we'll talk about the offense obviously being so poor this past season, worse than the SEC in terms of offensive efficiency, but it all really sits up front. Their offensive line, where do you think they've made progress? Have they made enough progress up front, O-line, Mike?
Well, I can only go by what Chad Morris said, because I don't see him this summer. They didn't look all that good last spring, but he said, we know who our top 5 guys are, our top 6 guys. He said a year ago we didn't know. So that's progress. And then they've got about 17 guys out there now, as opposed to about 9 last year. So there'll be less cross-training, which I think is good. But we've still got to see it happen.
I need to get out of here, Otis, because we're running out of time here, but you guys need to have your own show. So we'll just leave it at that. I'll give you your take here coming up, but in the meantime, we'll talk more about the passing of Mitch Petrus, former Razorback, former New York Giant, won a Super Bowl with the New York Giants, and of course we'll have much more in terms of his memorial service that's coming up on the Pig Trail after this.